Previews, and decisions. Were they a joke? Were they the right decision to make? This week on 30-Minute War. All right. Welcome into the 30-Minute War. And I said it at the top. Decisions. You know what? It's okay. Ryan Day chooses Kyle McCord to be quarterback one, QB one. May I remind everyone as well that Ohio State has not had I know this is an underlying topic that some picky people like to talk about. Ohio State hasn't had a white quarterback at QB1 since Beckham, I believe.
Jeez, yeah, you'd have to go back.
It's quite a ways back. So it's definitely a rarity. It was no other option this year. I think McCord was obviously chosen because of the experience with the starting the Akron game. It did allow for Ryan and Ohio State to see what he is capable of. It also gives him a one-up and helps him having the relationship previously with Marvin Harrison Jr., for sure, having gone to the same high school. So I'm sure to a degree, whether it was a big or a small degree, to a degree, I'm sure that was taken into consideration. And will this be the final decision on QB1? I don't think it will. Personally, I just don't. Obviously, Ryan did say both quarterbacks will play. Mm-hmm. So even though he announced the starter, underlyingly, it's still a competition. May the best man win.
So, for those of you who don't remember the recruiting situation with Kyle McCord, he went to a school called St. Joseph's in nearby my hometown in a place called Philadelphia. And he was recruited over another guy, Michigan's guy, J.J. McCarthy. Kyle McCord was chosen and recruited over J.J. McCarthy. And so I think that there's a little bit of sunk cost fallacy going on here, given the fact that he's got a year leg up of experience on Devin Brown in the system. He knows Ryan Day's system very well. He has maybe the shortest leash of a starting quarterback in a while. If he messes up in some of these games, Devin Brown's coming. It might even be game 2 because they're going to play both. And you have to think against Indiana, where Ohio State's favored by 30 points, that, he may do a Jim Harbaugh, and he may give, except it might be in one game. Maybe he gives Kyle McCord the first half, and then he gives Devin Brown the second half, right? And then game 2, maybe it's reversed. Maybe Devin Brown starts the first half and Kyle McCord goes the second half. But the bottom line is, I think they're going to both get auditioned. And he's picked McCord for game 1, snap 1, I think out of respect for what he's done with the program. But this is by no means a closed situation. This is, he needed to pick somebody. And the fact that it took so long, I think, is an indictment on McCord. The fact that Devin Brown sat out spring camp, of course he had an injury, but he was out injured for spring ball. McCord had all spring to solidify himself as the starter. It's taken until now, and I don't think that looks very good for Kyle McCord. So If Notre Dame, if there's a struggle against Notre Dame and Kyle McCord is still the starting quarterback, expect a benching at that point, if not sooner.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think Ohio State finds itself in the loop again that they didn't want to. We're going back 8 years, back to 2015 when we had this issue again.
Oh
The
yes.
first time. I didn't like the way it worked then. I hope that it's worked out differently this time because the way they did it before was just an absolute joke.
Didn't Cardale start game one?
Mm-hmm.
Which I think, honestly, I don't hate that. He won the national championship.
No, I don't hate it
No,
either.
I don't hate it.
When it comes down to the way I hated it was, okay, well, Cardale, if it's from the 20 to the 20, it's all you.
Right,
We get in the red zone as JT Barrett. I'm
it's
like,
JT, yeah.
You're just messing up the rhythm of the offense by doing that.
Well, Urban liked to call his read option. He liked to call his quarterback runs. We know this not just from JT, but going all the way back to Tebow and the jump passes and the runs that Tebow did. So, I mean, this is a long-standing thing that he likes to do. So, it doesn't shock me. But yeah, I don't know. I think, like I said on our very first video together, which I think is one of the most popular videos we've had. As I've said then, I think the path to beating Michigan, if you're going to beat Michigan, is losing to Notre Dame and getting McCord benched. That still stands because that's still a very, very possible situation.
Yeah, I mean, the only other way to bench him would be to bench him after losing to a team you're not supposed to, like Michigan State, or I can't remember if we play Nebraska this year or not. Losing to a team like that is going to get you benched. But the problem is Notre Dame, the reason I agree with you, and I think Notre Dame could be the loss is, throw out the fact that like Notre Dame hasn't beat Ohio State since 1936. Throw that out.
Yeah.
On the pure fact of Notre Dame, for one, actually looks really good this year. Two, It's not in week one. And three, that whole job thing is just up in the air.
Yeah. Now we have to take Notre Dame's performance with a bit of a grain of salt. They were playing a dog shit Navy team with a brand new head coach. Their old head coach got fired because it wasn't working anymore. They were averaging like 4 wins a year. So we have to just take the performance with a bit of a grain of salt. But Sam Hartman looked really good. I have to confess, I didn't watch every Game 0 game. But I did watch some of that one. I had a date and a couple of things, so I was like, I wasn't gonna watch all of it, but I was gonna watch, some of Notre Dame, Navy, and Sam Hartman looked fantastic. The running backs looked fantastic, and I also saw a little bit of UMass and the Fighting Don Browns pull off the victory. So they've already matched last year's win total.
It's funny though. I guess we kind of have to talk about it a little bit.
Yeah.
Because it's a revolving circle. But if anybody remembers last season, Northwestern beat Nebraska in Dublin, Ireland. And that was their only win. They never won a game in the States. Notre Dame just beat the ever-loving crap out of Navy in Dublin, Ireland. So is Notre Dame destined to have probably the worst season in franchise history?
Oh, you're going to get all the Notre Dame people after you now. You're going to get Michael and Golden Playbook are coming after you for that comment. I don't think so. I think they're headed for 10 wins probably.
Honestly, yes. I do think that won't happen to Notre Dame. I think it'll happen to Navy, but Navy didn't win that game either. So, but yeah, I think this Notre Dame team is built better than last year's Northwestern team. But somebody's got to be the butt end of a joke.
Well, speaking of jokes, first of all, hi Sorgi. Sorgi's in here. Anthony, great guy. and his dad is always awesome. In all the shows we did a couple of shows together. So speaking of jokes, Michigan has self-imposed punishments, essentially to get ahead of the NCAA ruling that will probably happen next off season. Essentially, what they're trying to do is get ahead of it now. They're trying to limit the amount of games that everybody gets later. So if they take 3 games, the idea is if Harbaugh takes 3 games now, then he might only have to take 3 games later if he stays, which I don't even know if he's going to stay. But here's what. So here's what I'm going to show this graphic here real quick. So here's here's what's happening. So because Harbaugh's taking 3 games, and Sharon Moore is taking 1 game, which, by the way, the NCAA said that's fine. That's going to be his punishment. So Sharon Moore is good.
Wow.
He's good. So he's taking his 1 game, which means that game 1 is going to be coached by Jesse Minner, defensive coordinator, and Kirk Campbell is going to be the play caller. Okay? But we're not done, because I predicted on the Michigan Wolverines Live 100th episode, the special episode we had, full of guest stars and everything else, and Mark calling in from Big Ten Media Days, I predicted that they could make a mockery of everything and have musical chairs head coaches. So not only are they going to have Jesse Minner coach game 1, but then game 2, they're splitting, and Jay Harbaugh is taking the first half of UNLV.
Oh my God.
Mike Hart's taking the second half of UNLV, and then Sharon Moore, once he's back and he's back in the offense again, he's going to be fighting against Bowling Green. But wait, we're not done. Hold on, because there's another graphic, and this one might even be better. Okay. Okay. So not only is Michigan doing that, but Michigan is promoting Ben Herbert, who's our strength and conditioning coach, and I would argue he's Michigan's Mickey Marotti in terms of what he's been able to do as strength and conditioning coach. But the best one of all, Daddy's back. Jim Harbaugh has hired his dad, Jack Harbaugh, who, by the way, has years of head coaching experience as an assistant for these games. So because with Jim out, and with Sharon Moore taking a self-imposed game, they have the room, and now they're bringing in these associate and assistant head coaches. So this is a straight up mockery. I really do think they're trolling at this point, but there is a glimmer of Harbaugh wants to give his assistants head coaching experience. There is that too. Harbaugh's always been about his assistants. During the COVID year, he took his bonus money, and even though he was taking half his salary as well, he also distributed his bonus money and gave it all to his assistants that year. So he's all about helping his assistants, getting his assistants vital head coaching experience. And if you remember, Ryan Day was interim head coach before he was officially made the head coach the next year. So I think that they're all kind of auditioning for the prospect of being Michigan's head coach in 2024.
I mean,
possibly.
I can see it. I get it. But the difference is, here you go, yet again, Ohio State and Michigan fall in the same situation, and Ohio State takes care of the situation better than Michigan. Did Ohio State go and pull the stupid carousel move that Michigan's pulling? No. They said, Ryan Day, you're going to be the next coach. It was already determined that Ryan Day was going to be the next coach. And I honestly think, we'll never know, but I honestly think Greg Schiano just didn't want to be at Ohio State anymore. He really wanted to focus on family. And then he ends up back at Rutgers. Good for him. He's doing a good job over there. But I mean, this is an absolute mockery. And you know what? It is honestly the most Jim Harbaugh way for Jim Harbaugh to leave the university. I mean, I'm sorry, but there is no one, in my opinion, on that staff currently that is head coach worthy. I mean, yes, would it be cool to see the former running back who freaking tore it up outside of the Ohio State game be the next head coach for Michigan? Absolutely. You're going to start this cycle of former players being the head coach? Cool. I mean, you're going to bring in the name brands by bringing in the top name people, but guess what? It doesn't always work. Go ask Nebraska. I don't
Yeah.
think Mike Hart's going to be worthy enough.
Well, yeah, I just think, given so the NCAA with this whole cheeseburger gate situation, they had to come out and say it's not about this is how bad they were losing the PR battle. They had to come out and say it's
It's
not
not
about
about
a
it.
cheeseburger, and that's when you know you've lost the PR battle.
Yeah.
When you have to do that. And yet, so I think that Jim Harbaugh is and Ward Manuel and Santa Ono are making are having a bit of fun here, but they're also giving their assistants head coaching experience. I don't hate it. I predicted it might happen. I thought it would either be that or Jesse Minter would coach all of them.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
makes sense.
here's the thing to me, and you make a good point with Jesse Minter. I think Jesse Minter, if Harbaugh leaves after the season, I think Jesse Minter will be the one to be tapped on the shoulder to be the next guy. And I think it would do Jesse justice to more or less leave the guys that he has on the staff. Don't pull a Ryan Day and
Right.
Greg Schiano situation. Whether Ryan forced him out or Greg decided on his own he was going to leave, we'll never know again. But don't have something like that happen. If Jesse Minter's the one, cool. Leave Mike Hart on your staff. Leave everybody on your staff and continue to build and grow on the tradition and I can't find the word. The continue to build
legacy.
Yes, the legacy and everything that you have.
There's only one issue with that, Buckeye Mike, and the issue is if Michigan does win the national championship or at least is in the national championship game, which means they have to win a playoff game to get there, then most likely all of the people you mentioned are getting jobs. And I mean head coaching level jobs, or at the very least for OC level jobs, where they get to be the sole OC of the entire program. And I'm talking about Mike Hart. I'm talking about Kirk Campbell. I'm talking about 2024 might be a brand new staff, or at least a lot of new people. But remember, Kirk Campbell, for example, had years at Old Dominion, at Penn State. A lot of them have had years elsewhere, and they know people who would be a good addition to their staff if they were the head coach of Michigan. Or I think Mike Hart could get a head coaching role as well. If he isn't the head coach of Michigan, I think he could get a head coaching role elsewhere. So if Jim Harbaugh goes, regardless of if he stays or goes after this year,
should I stay or should I go?
And honestly, I think it comes down to the Raiders giving him enough money and full control. If the Raiders give him full control and enough money, their buddies, him and Mark Davis, he's probably gone. And he did turn down the Broncos, but that's because it was kind of a crappy job. Let's be honest.
Yeah, I mean, just overall, this whole thing, they're good topics. They're lighthearted topics. Both of these topics are a joke. These first two, an absolute joke. I mean, you waited to the last minute to name your starting QB, and now this. I mean, yeah, cool. You're having fun with the PR because you won the PR battle, like you said. But, I mean, you're kind of making a mockery of the university in a way.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a way to look at it where it's I don't know if it's a mockery. I think it's is it ridiculous it on its face, sure, but there are good reasons to do it. And you know, this is Harbaugh's MO, as you said. Remember, he had JJ and Cade both start a game, and you know that worked out pretty well because JJ was named the starter, and they, you know, uh ran the table until, you know, running into the TCU gauntlet. So I mean, yeah, that worked out pretty okay. Um, but yeah, I'm excited for to talk about these games. I think it's going to be there's really a bellwether of how the seasons are going to go.
Absolutely. Let's see. Before we get there.
Oh yes.
Okay, there we go. Yeah, before we get there.
In a world full of fakes, how do you avoid buying fake items that look just like the real thing? Are you getting faked over? Experts say it's all in the details.
All right. Now, like you said, games. Let's talk games. Yeah. Ohio State, Indiana. Ohio State is favored by 30 points. This is not going to be a 2021 Ohio State, Indiana, where Ohio State just marches in and puts almost 60 points on Indiana while they score next to nothing. I do think for the first quarter it'd be competitive. I think you're going to see Kyle McCord struggle within the first quarter until he gets his groove. This is his first live reps game action since Akron last year or the year before. And I think eventually Ohio State is going to just tighten up the defense, and you're going to have a monster performance from everyone all around on the defense. You know, I hope to see and expect to see standout play from JT Tuimoloau off the edge, Jack Sawyer. He's being bumped up, I believe, to a full-time player now on the roster. He earned himself. My man, Nate, God, I can't even remember his first name offhand. Ransom at corner. I believe he's corner or safety. Lathan Ransom. That's it. Expect to see a lot out of him. Everybody remembers him, I'm sure, from that major hit against Minnesota to open the season a couple of years ago. At the end, I think these first three games are just hard to talk about. Oh, four for Michigan, first three for Ohio State, because I just think both teams are just going to run away with it at the end. I think Ohio State is going to more than cover. Indiana is going to get lucky and be able to put some points on the board. It's just a matter of how many and what kind of performance we see out of Trace Jackson Davis's brother, who's going to be playing quarterback for Indiana. And I'm going to say Ohio State's going to win 46-10.
How about that? I don't remember. I go back to Big Ten Live last week. Yesterday's episode, because I don't remember what I said. I think I predicted Ohio State was going to win by a lot. So go back to that because I don't want to contradict my prediction. So it was last night on the Ocho Big Ten Live. But what I will say is that Kyle McCord has a short leash, as we said. He is going to have to produce. He does have that high school connection with Marvin Harrison Jr. We know that Egbuka is a 5-star, incredible wide receiver who's probably going to go first round in the draft. We know that they have Stover, really, really good tight end. The questions that I have are, how's the O-line going to hold up? I think against Indiana will probably hold up fine. I'm not concerned at all, actually, about Ohio State's defense in this game.
Yeah.
And the reason is because my defensive coordinator was Don Brown for 6 years ish, and they crushed it against competition like Indiana, because when you run these zero blitz and these man coverage packages and you rely on physicality, you can out physical teams like Indiana. And I'm not saying that Knowles is Don Brown, but the similarities are there. And so I think they're going to be fine against Indiana. And y'all will take care of business. If Kyle McCord struggles and Devin Brown comes in the second half and lights it up, then look out, because Devin Brown might be your week 2 starting quarterback. And I'm not so sure that Ryan Day hasn't thought of that. He just wants to give the nod out of respect to the guy who's been in the program. But yeah, I think Indiana, it has not been able to recover from when Kalen DeBoer left the program and Mike Hart left the program. That was their best years, 2019, 2020. They beat Michigan. They looked great. But Allen has not been able to replace those pieces and that staff. And I just don't see the personnel there to win. I think I have them at 2-10 for the season. Sorry, Jeffrey. But dreams could happen, and you got to dream big. So maybe they make a bowl, but I just don't see it. I think you're headed for Tom Allen is headed for a one-way ticket out of Indiana at the end of the season.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, first of all, I think Tom Allen's done plenty for the university as a whole. I mean, just, when you're, stuffed at the bottom of the best division in college football. And yes, I said division, not conference, division, because the Big Ten East, it has to be the best division in college football. It's the first division in college football playoff history to have 2 teams from the same division in the playoff. But I mean, yeah, my bold prediction was 8-4 for Indiana on one of Mark's shows, but I don't know. I think at best they can get 6-6 at best.
Wow.
I mean, I think it's there.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to see what happens, but I think they're headed for 2 wins, but we'll watch it, and maybe we'll be pleasantly surprised. So why don't we go into East Carolina at Michigan at the Big House, which will be a maze out game. And Michigan is favored by so it's kind of fluctuated. The most recent article, I think it was 36.5, then it was 36. I think now it's 35.5. So East Carolina is inching forward, and maybe we have upset potential, but probably not. Let me run down what's happening in this game. First of all, obviously, like we said before, Jesse Minter will be head coach. That doesn't mean Harbaugh won't be coaching out of the game, because he will be head coaching every day leading up until the game. He's just not coaching the actual game itself. Jesse Minter is. The play caller is going to be Kirk Campbell, who did call plays at Old Dominion in 2020, 2021. And because Kirk Campbell is the QB coach, I would expect to see the pass game used heavily in the first half. And nobody thinks that's going to happen. Everybody thinks that they're going to run the ball. But remember, they made the mistake last year of not passing the ball enough. And then it didn't gel until the Ohio State game. And really, that was, I think, more Knowles' fault than it was anything else. And his scheme just wasn't, he didn't make good decisions. But it took that long, really, for the pass game to gel. And then it did. Ohio State, Purdue, and you could say what you want about TCU, but there were moments in that game where the passing game was working, and they came back from a big deficit to almost win the game. I say almost, but still, those final 3 games, the pass game was working. So I think they're going to do the pass. A couple of people are out. So as you can imagine, with this almost being a preseason game, The returning starters, Rod Moore and Makari Page, are both questionable, and I would argue they're going to sit out. And therefore, you're looking at Keon Sabb as safety potentially. Apparently, Keon Sabb, Harbaugh has said some great things about how he's done last year on special teams. He didn't think that they played him enough. He was the 84 overall prospect in 2022, number 9 in all safeties. Zeke Berry could be the opposite safety. So both of them I would look out for. Will Johnson is another one who's probably going to be kept out, I think, in the first game. I don't know for sure, but that's what I'm hearing, which means Josh Wallace from UMass is going to be one of the cornerbacks. And then the opposite could be Jaden McBurrows, Jair Hill, or Keyshawn Harris. We have not heard Amarian Walker's name. Minner did not mention him, and I don't think he's doing that well. He didn't do very well in the spring game. He clearly wasn't mentioned as one of the ones. So I would expect Josh Wallace and Jaden McBurrows to be the cornerbacks in the first game. Also, Tyler Morris and Peyton O'Leary are injured. Now that isn't as crazy impactful because you've still got Cornelius Johnson, Roman Wilson, and then the other one could be Carmelo English, Frederick Moore. There's a couple of different options. Christian Dixon. So just because those two are out, I think you've got some pretty solid, wideouts to take over. But clearly, there's going to be some pieces out. This is about as close to a preseason game as you get in college football, because you've got an interim head coach, you've got an interim OC, you've got about 5-6 key players out. JJ McCarthy's probably going to get benched because they're up by so much, and then you'll get to see who the backup is. The reason also, Buckeye Mike, that I think that they're going to throw a lot is because the Pirates, the East Carolina Pirates, their pass defense, even when they had all their people, wasn't very good last year. This year, they've lost a bunch of people. I would actually say they're gonna watch film on East Carolina and study East Carolina, and they're gonna air it out because they know that they can air it out for lots of yards and just basically practice backyard pitch and catch. The quarterback is Mason Garcia. He's a former 4-star. And they did lose their starter that they had for years, but Garcia is 6'5". He can throw the football. And Garcia is going to have to play the game of his entire life in order to win against Michigan. And Michigan's going to have to sleepwalk. They're going to have to be like they were against TCU, but even worse, because that's the only way I see East Carolina coming into the big house and pulling the biggest upset since App State.
Yeah, I mean, when I look at this game, first of all, I think 36 is way too much. Mm-hmm. So if you're a betting man, take ECU to cover, take Michigan to win, and actually take ECU to cover and take the over, because the over-under is 51.5. I've been hyping up ECU a lot.
I know you have.
Of the NC State game last year. But the difference is Michigan's not NC State.
And East Carolina loses a lot of players from that, from the people who are playing in that game.
Yeah.
They lose their quarterback. They lose players on both sides of the ball. Michigan's returning, it was 81. I think they revised it to 78% returning production. It's a lot of returning production.
Yeah. But, to your point, I think Michigan will get a comfortable enough lead to bench the starters. You should. If it was me, I'd bench them after the first quarter. I don't care what the score. As long as the score's not 0-0 and ECU's defense is punching Michigan in the mouth, I would bench the starters no matter what. Because I think coming out of the first, I think it's going to be at least 14-0 or something like that.
Blake Corum's probably out after the first touchdown. He's going to get an appearance, but Donovan Edwards is most likely going to be the primary back, along with I'm actually hearing that Khalil Mullings has solidified, or at least is ahead for the third running back slot, which I thought was going to be Ben Hall based on his performance in the spring game, but apparently he's doing very well in practice, and so that's a Khalil Mullings being the third string. It was I think it was Zach Smith. Somebody said, when you're thinking of your running backs and who you want in that third position, because you guys have this situation where who's going to be the second string and the third string running back as well, and like, is it going to be Chip Tranum or is it going to be Dallin Hayden, and who brings something unique to the table in that third position? And I think Zach was the one who said Hayden, can bring something unique into that third position, whereas Chip is like another version of Mayan Williams, just faster, but he doesn't run as hard. So like the same is like basically Khalil Mullings brings something different that the other two don't. Well, I mean, Blake kind of does, but he has that barrel it in, mentality where he can get you that yard, like hammering Panda, almost like a fullback-esque running back three.
Right.
And then Ben Hall's still going to be, I mean, you're going to see Ben Hall in this game. You will in the second half. And he's probably going to run for a lot of yards in the second half. So I think Michigan's going to win comfortably. Again, prediction for next episode, I'll go back to my predictions from Big Ten Live, but just go back and watch that. And I made predictions on every single Big Ten game that had at least one Big Ten team. And so did everybody on that panel, including yourself, because you were on for a bit too.
Yeah. Speaking of that, I actually just did a video a little bit ago.
There you go.
On the rest of the games, and I actually excluded these two so that I could be more specific on here, but that's just me. But yes, so I do think once you pull the starters and you get down to the third strings, because I'm pretty sure, you're going to get to that point. But like I said, ECU will cover and take the over. I think it's just because it's the first game, once you get comfortably ahead, everything kind of just slows down. So I don't think it's going to be anything like this. But I do still say Michigan wins. I think Michigan wins 38-20.
Oh. Yeah, if I recall correctly, I had a similar prediction because I believe that Michigan will comfortably win, but ECU is going to be a tougher opponent than people think. They're definitely the toughest of the three cream puffs.
Oh yeah,
without a doubt, but they lose a lot of talent. So Michigan's going to win pretty comfortably. And I think what you're going to see is they're going to be ahead by maybe 28 to nothing after the first half. And then they bench the starters. ECU starts to pull in. Michigan probably scores another one or two times, but I think I predicted that ECU would get at least a couple of points. Maybe that prediction isn't far off because, second half, anything can happen when you bench the starters.
Absolutely. And so before we go, we have an announcement for those that actually go back and watch. Crap. Let me get to it. Sorry. Let's see. Here we go. Okay. So we have, I threw it together, but we have merch for the show and I have merch for the channel over on bonfire.com.
There we go.
So this is the 2.0 version of our shirt. Version 1.0 for my channel. And version 1.0 for the show.
How about that?
I absolutely love this design because you get the title in the front, and then we can change to the back. Whose side are you on?
We got merch, folks.
We got merch. So go over there and get yourself some merch.
All right.
This stuff is awesome and it looks great. And definitely look to build off of this. And I'm actually, originally it was just in campaign mode. So it was going to be like after 2 weeks, I'd have to reboot it. So I'm in the process of changing it back so that it's there constantly. So yeah, I'll definitely leave the link somewhere. So go over there and get yourself some merch, folks. And and actually
some merch. And I should probably mention real quick, tomorrow night, 5 p.m. Eastern on Michigan Wolverines Live on the Voice of College Football, we're going to have a special panel, weather permitting. It might be Mark, not me, if my internet doesn't work. We have a tropical storm coming in, but we have a panel with Nelson Hubble from Maize and Blue Review and Tanner Wooten from Blue by 90. And all of us are going to be reviewing the East Carolina game. So very excited about that. And those two are both really talented, and it'll be great to share the virtual stage with both of them and chop it up on some East Carolina Pirates football.
All right. It sounds awesome. Definitely have to check it out. Well, definitely stay safe.
Thanks, Anthony. I appreciate you. He's a good guy. Got stories.
Well, I think that about wraps it up for this week. I hope y'all enjoyed this episode, and we will see you next week right here. Have a good one, everybody.
I'm a game changer.